Hello everyone and happy glorious Monday, June 1st, 2020. It has been 11 weeks today since the shutdown of the non-essentials, and I would like to share as a part of our Mindful Mondays a brilliant statement that one of the clients made this weekend as we were having a discussion. We were talking about, the reemergence and maybe potentially phase two, and all the struggle around that. And she said, if I had to give myself a grade for the last 11 weeks, I would give myself a D. Such a brilliant statement for many, many reasons, and we could have a lot of discussion about it, but I want to unpack it a little bit from the yogic angle, because by saying that statement is basically showing that she had done intense work to strengthen some of the most difficult muscles we have to strengthen, and that is those of introspection. The whole premise of yoga is self-study. It's self-realization, self-transformation, self-awareness, and that really is such a brilliant statement, because within it she was able to show that she recognizes this higher discriminatory aspect of our minds, as well as the lower, more sensory, kind of egoic part of who we are. And so if I unpack that statement just a little bit more through, again, a yogic lens, one of the foundational texts that we use for this journey of self-study and self-awareness is called the Bhagavad Gita. And the basic translation for that is Song of the Spirit. And we all have a song of our spirit inside, that part of us that just aspires to be the absolute best that we can be. So I want to talk about two characters that are, in this text of the Bhagavad Gita. One is Sanjaya. And Sanjaya, this character in the text that is, talking back and forth, it's a discourse basically, the whole story on the spiritual daily battles that we all face. And Sanjaya represents our power of intuitive, impartial self-analysis. It's our ability to stand aside and to observe oneself without prejudice, and then judge ourselves accurately. Now, another character that is in the story of the Bhagavad Gita is the blind king. His name is Dhritarashtra. You don't have to remember his name, but he is blind. And this blind king represents our blind mind. And every one of us has one. It's the lower egoic nature that we have of physical restlessness and self-indulgence and just me. It's called ahankara sometimes. So the discourse is on these two opposing forces that are at battle throughout life. The higher discriminatory intelligence that we have, as well as the lower sense-conscious mind. But again, in that statement, this is some of the hardest work we do, is self-transformation, right, of growth. It truly hurts to grow. So these two concepts in yoga, we give us skills, the skills of action, of discernment, and the ability to self-reflect. So I ask you on this Monday, this Mindful Monday, I'll share the question that my friend posed. How would you grade yourself on the last 11 weeks? And that's strengthening some very, difficult muscles inside for the ability to self-reflect. So ask your inner Sanjaya. One more thing that came up through the conversation that we were having is that potentially we undervalue or are ignorant of how to grieve and how much potential energy and mentally and emotionally it takes to grieve. Because the last 11 weeks have been about, in a big way, about grieving, and the entire yogic premise of self-study and self-transformation and the Bhagavad Gita, the stories, are about letting go and taking refuge in our higher self. So we're not taught how to grieve, but it's in a big way, that's kind of what the last 11 weeks have been about, is letting go of structures and conveniences and things that we always potentially took for granted or thought would always be there are no longer there. And the entire journey of life is really about letting go. So I think another question on this Mindful Monday is not only how would you grade yourself for the last 11 weeks, but I would also potentially ask how well you ask your Sanjaya. Doesn't matter what you share with everyone else, it's what you know about yourself. How well did you grieve? And what does grieving look like to you? So for those of you who are interested on going on a journey toward wellness, which is all of what evolutions stands for, it is our core purpose. And you've listened to the very end of this. Today we had amazing news. We have a very beautiful offer to teach in-person outdoor classes, 9 by 9, 9 at a time, on the water in Annapolis. So we're really excited about that, to continue to share as much as we can through our classes, every class, but especially yoga, how we can become more whole. And the skillful discernment that life is going to take now, especially at this point in time. So thank you again for listening. I would love to hear your feedback, and I'd love to see you in Annapolis in person, and maybe in one of our outdoor classes. Namaste.